Welcome to Jerry's Pats page, proud to be part of the Patriots Fan Talk Radio Network. This is the place for everything Patriots.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Jerry's Pats page, 2014 regular season recap show. I'm your host, Jerry Bourget, and I want to fill you in on the 2014 regular season for our favorite NFL team, the New England Patriots. Remember that this is a show by fans for fans, so you don't have to listen to the crap spewing for the mouths of the New England media who like to refer to themselves as quote-unquote experts. Remember, we're not here to criticize or nitpick our team. We're here to support them. And you can hear more of my broadcasts at blogtalkradio.com/Jerry's Pats page. And for more information on both myself and the Patriots, check out my website at www.jerryspatspage.com. for schedules, game reports, and more. And of course, www.patriots.com for the ultimate Patriots coverage. For our team, the Patriots. Go Pats. Okay, without further ado, let's get down to business. The Patriots finished the 2014 season at 12-4 and were the AFC's number one seed, holding the playoff bye for the first round. And they have the home field advantage throughout the playoffs. They were 7-1 at Gillette Stadium, and they were 5-3 on the road. And they were 4-2 against the AFC East this year. The regular season, week 1, we saw the Patriots open the season in Miami by losing 33-20. Tom Brady threw for 249 yards, but the leading rusher was No-Show Marino for the Dolphins. He had 134 yards rushing. Julian Edelman did have 95 yards receiving in that game. The second game, September 2nd, at Minnesota, Patriots beat the Vikings 30-7, and Matt Castle, former Patriot, threw for 202 yards. Stephen Ridley did rush for over 100 with 101 yards, and Julian Edelman had 81 yards receiving. Home opener, Gillette Stadium, Week 3, September 21st. Patriots hosted the Oakland Raiders, and they beat them 16-9. Tom Brady had 234 yards. The Patriots did hold Darren McFadden to 59 yards rushing. Week 4 was a nightmare in Kansas City. Patriots went on Monday Night Football and laid an egg, or were destroyed by the Chiefs, 41-14. Tom Brady did have 292 yards. Alex Smith threw for 248 yards. Niall Davis had 107 yards. But if you remember, this is the game that Brandon LaFell first kind of broke out as, feeling more comfortable in the offense. He did have 119 yards receiving. The following Sunday night, Patriots hosted Cincinnati at Gillette Stadium and beat them thoroughly, 43-17. In that game, Tom Brady had 292 yards. Gronkowski had over 100 yards receiving, and Stephen Ridley ran for 113. The following week, Week 6, the Patriots went to Buffalo. In front of 70,185 people, Tom Brady threw for 361 yards, and the Patriots won by a total of 37-22. Scott Chandler did have 105 yards for the Bills. The Patriots held Fred Jackson to 26 yards rushing. Patriots returned home, and they hosted the Jets, where they beat the New York Jets 27-25. Chris Ivory had over 100 yards, 107 yards in the loss. Shane Vereen rushed for 71 yards. Tom Brady had 261 yards for the Patriots in the win. Week 8, October 26th, the Patriots hosted the Chicago Bears and destroyed them. Total of 51-23. Tom Brady had 354 yards. Even though Matt Forte had 114 yards rushing for Chicago, it wasn't nearly enough. Week 9, November 2nd, was the Patriots hosting the Denver Broncos, much anticipated. Top two seeded teams in the AFC, potentially. New England destroyed Denver 43-21, even though Peyton Manning did have 438 yards passing. Emmanuel Sanders had 151 yards receiving. Week 10 in the NFL, so the Patriots have the bye week. So they came back in Week 11, which was November 16th, and they went into Indianapolis, and they thoroughly beat the Colts 42-20. Andrew Luck did throw for over 300 yards, 303. That's the game where Jonas Gray put 201 yards up and put 4 touchdowns on the board. Colby Fleener, by the way, for the Colts did have 144 yards. You notice a little bit of a trend with the tight ends opposing teams against the Patriots. November 23rd, the Patriots hosted the Lions, and they beat the Lions 34-9. I hate that team. Tom Brady threw for 349 yards, and Brandon LaFell caught 98 yards in the win. Heading to Week 13, the Patriots would go to Green Bay. And the Patriots don't play the Packers that much, especially at Lambeau Field. And they went there, and on the last drive, the Patriots could have won the game, but it didn't happen. And the Patriots dropped it 26-21. Aaron Rodgers did have 368 yards passing. Devontae Adams had 121 yards, and Eddie Lacy had 98 yards, all in the win. The 14th game of the season for the Patriots, December 7th, the Patriots would go to San Diego. They spent the whole week in San Diego after they left Green Bay to prepare. And it worked because they won 23-14. Tom Brady threw for 317 yards. LeGarrette Blount rushed for 66 yards, and Julian Edelman caught 141 yards for the game. That was a tough season of the schedule for the Patriots. Returning home, they hosted Miami, looking for some revenge from opening day when they lost in Miami. And they slammed the Dolphins 41-13. Although Ryan Tannehill, Patriots make all average quarterbacks look like, Peyton Manning and Dan Marino. As I was saying, Ryan Tannehill had 346 yards. But it wasn't enough. Wasn't nearly enough. Mike Wallace, by the way, had 104 yards for the Dolphins. On to New York and Rex Ryan's final game as Jets head coach against the Patriots in their stadium. And the Patriots squeaked out one, 17-16, and that was a blocked field goal by Vince Wilfork, my man, Vince Wilfork, preventing the score. And the Patriots held on and squeaked out. Geno Smith did have 210 yards. Chris Ivory was held to 53 yards on the ground. Brandon LaFell had 64 yards receiving. Week 17, the final game of the season. Now the Patriots had already locked up the home field advantage throughout the playoffs and the AFC's top number one seed with the 12-4 because the Broncos had lost the week before. So this game didn't really mean anything. Tom Brady came out and started the first half. Not a lot of starters started. Tom Brady would be replaced by Garoppolo in the second half. Make a long story short, Buffalo wanted the win for their coach. They wanted a winning season, so they played harder. And the Patriots backups basically lost to Buffalo 17-9. That was the last game at Gillette. Kyle Orton had 176 yards, and he ended up retiring after the game. Again, Brandon LaFell had 70 yards. LeGarrette Blount rushed for 62. So that closed out the season at 12 wins and 4 losses. Let's look at some final stats from 2014, okay? Looking at Tom Brady, okay? He had 582 attempts. He completed 373 passes. He threw for 4,109 yards, and he had 33 touchdowns and only 9 interceptions. He was sacked 21 times, and he had a QB rating of 97.4%. Jimmy Garoppolo, this is interesting. In 27 attempts, he completed 19 passes for 182 yards. He had 1 touchdown, no interceptions. He was sacked 5 times, and his QB rating was 101.2. It was actually higher than Tom Brady's. But we all know how that goes. Looking at the rushing, Shane Vereen for rushing had 96 total attempts for 391 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. Stephen Ridley, before he went on injured reserve, totaled 94 carries for 340 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jonas Gray, 89 attempts, 412 yards and 5 touchdowns. And newcomer LeGarrette Blount, who was released by Pittsburgh, a good pickup for the Patriots, come back to the Patriots, had 60 attempts for 281 yards and 3 touchdowns. I know that the rushing totals weren't really all that impressive, but let's look at the receiving. Julian Edelman led the team in receptions with 92. He had 972 yards, and he had 4 touchdowns, and his long was 69 yards. Rob Gronkowski had another great year. He had 82 receptions, 1,124 yards, and he had 12 touchdowns. And he's been healthy so far. Brandon LaFell, who came over from the Carolina Panthers, had a great season. And this is someone that Cam Newton said wasn't reliable and would drop the ball a lot. Well, when you have Tom Brady, you become a star. So Brandon LaFell ended with 74 receptions for 953 yards, and he had 7 touchdowns, all career highs, by the way. Shane Vereen, for the receiving part, had 52 receptions. He had 447 yards, and he did have 3 receiving touchdowns. Danny Amendola, the $35 million 5-year bust, who was supposed to replace Wes Welker, but that's a whole nother subject. He ended up with 27 receptions for 200 yards and 1 touchdown. Timothy Wright, if you remember, he came over from Tampa Bay in the Logan Mankins trade at the end of training camp. And he ended up putting up pretty decent numbers for the Patriots. He ended up with 26 total receptions, 259 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Of course, they're all career highs for him. Okay, looking over at the defensive side of the ball, let's looking at the tackles. Jamie Collins led all the tackles with 116 combined. He did force 4 fumbles and he had 4 sacks on the year. Next up was Patrick Chung with 85 total tackles. Dante Hightower had 89 total tackles. He did have 6 sacks and he forced 1 fumble. Devin McCourty had 68 combined and he did have a fumble recovery. Rob Ninkovich had 62 total tackles. He had 8 sacks. And Darrelle Revis, the star cornerback, had 47 total tackles, and he did have a fumble recovery. Gerard Mayo, before he went on injured reserve with a shoulder injury, had 53 total tackles, and he did have a sack. Kyle Arrington had 39 total tackles and a sack and 2 fumble recoveries. Chandler Jones had a total of 43 total tackles, and he had 6 sacks and 2 fumble recoveries. Logan Ryan had 42 total tackles and a fumble recovery. My man Vince Wilfork had 47 total tackles. And rounding out the leads was Brandon Browner, who had 25 total tackles, and his first year in New England proved to be very physical. Yeah, he did get a little bit of penalties, but that's okay. We'll take that. We'll take the trade-off. To have a little bit of a bite to the defense that the Patriots certainly were lacking since we had Ty Law and Tyrone Poole in the corners, and Rodney Harrison at safety. Looking at the interception leaders on the defense for 2014, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 are tied with 2, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players have 1. Devin McCourty has 2. Jamie Collins has 2. Logan Ryan has 2. Darrelle Revis has 2. Duron Harmon has 1, and he brought that back 60 yards. Brandon Browner has 1. Rob Ninkovich has 1. Patrick Chung has 1. My man Vince Wilfork has 1. Dominic Easley has 1. Alfonso Dennard has 1. And rounding out, Akeem Ayers has 1. And that was a great pickup from Tennessee. He wasn't even a starter in Tennessee. He comes to New England and he's performed fantastically. Looking at the overall 2014 offensive regular season stats. Let's see. In points scored, the Patriots had an average of 29.2 points per game. That was 4th best in the NFL. Total yards, 365.5 yards per game. That was 11th best in the NFL. Passing yards, 257.6 passing yards per game. That was in the top 10, good for 9th. Rushing yards per game, they were 18th at 107.9 yards per game rushing. Looking at the defensive regular season stats, the Patriots gave up a total of 19.6 yards per game, and that was 8th best in the NFL. They gave up 344.1 yards per game, which was good for 13th. They gave up 239.8 passing yards per game, which is good for 17th in the NFL. Excuse me. Rushing yards per game, they gave up 104.3, and that was good for 9th in the National Football League. Now, I know there's a lot of information to digest, but I don't have much time here. The Patriots will be playing on Saturday, January 10, 2015, in a divisional round at Gillette Stadium. The possible opponents are the Baltimore Ravens, the Chicago Bengals, Cincinnati Bengals, the Indianapolis Colts, all of whom, by the way, are playing on Wild Card Weekend this weekend. Going around the NFL, the Wild Card matchups for this weekend are the Detroit Lions at the Dallas Cowboys, Arizona Cardinals at Carolina Panthers, the Cincinnati Bengals at the Indianapolis Colts, and the Baltimore Ravens at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Well, that would just about wrap it up for today. I hope you enjoyed watching my broadcast. If you have any comments or suggestions, please let me know. My email address is patriots2001champs@gmail.com. And again, you can go to my website, www.jerryspatspage.com. Check things out. Let me know what's going. Let me know what you guys think. Again, we're here for the fans to support our team, the New England Patriots. Until next time, I'm Jerry Bourget saying have a great day, everyone. Enjoy Wild Card Weekend, and go Pats.